At this stage, the rocket was traveling between 11 and 14,000 miles per hour when a saucer-shaped craft entered the frame.
It flew into the frame like this, and it shot a beam of light at the warhead. Now, remember, all this stuff is flying at several thousand miles an hour. So this thing fires a beam of light at the warhead, hits it, fires another beam of light, and then flies out the way it came in. And the warhead tumbles out of space. Now, when the lights came on, Major Mansman turned around and looked at me and said, "Were you guys screwing around up there?" And I said, "No, sir." And he said, "What was that?" And I said, "It looks to me like we got a UFO."
Sightings in France. The UFOs filmed in Milan, Italy. The UFO fleets over Peru. The Chinese scientists filming UFO at the Purple Mountain Observatory. It goes on and on.
Well, of course, at this late date, there is just an abundance of documentation, military reports, radar sightings, personal experiences. They go back for many years, but they have been routinely ignored, shun aside by the government, ignored by the media, and therefore the average person rarely gets to hear of these things. But when you put them together, it forms a very compelling picture that there is a reality that's happening all around us that we are being systematically denied information on. I've had many people say, well, look, if all this happened, wouldn't there have been military people and radar operators and even policemen and stuff who would have said they had these experiences? And the answer is absolutely yes. But early on, they learned their lesson. If they stepped forward and they said, yes, I saw these things, then they tend to lose their job, they lose their credibility, people begin to snicker at them. And that's been very effective over the years in keeping this whole issue quiet.
I know that if they took an oath not to reveal that, in our country that was very serious at that time. Okay? If you violated a top secret clearance, you could be put in jail for 15 or 20 years and everything you have done removed from you. Yeah.
Could this be why the military observations never reached the public? But many who had been involved in UFO sightings over the years felt a strong urge to reveal what they knew and to be relieved from the burden of carrying these secrets. After 30 or 40 years and having retired from service, many were willing to break their oaths and speak publicly.
They can stop on a dime, they can take off at Mach 10 or greater. It's unbelievable what they can do. So we need to know these things. So the only reason I'm here is to tell you, let's disclose this whenever we can. Please. Thank you.
In 2001, the U.S. medical doctor Stephen Greer staged an initiative where several hundred witnesses of high rank and high credibility came forward with what they had experienced during service. The Disclosure Project, helped by the Internet and YouTube, was a formidable eye-opener to people all over the world.
So we started a project that's known as the Disclosure Project, which people can see at disclosureproject.org, where we began to identify military and corporate and CIA intelligence officers who had personal knowledge of the classified operations dealing with this subject, and to get them to come forward with our information to disclose this publicly. Because what we felt was necessary was that the secrecy should be ended and this information disclosed so that humanity, not just one country in America, but all of humanity could make peaceful contact with these civilizations visiting us, but also would lay the foundation for these new technologies, the energy and propulsion systems that are behind these UFOs that are so mysterious. How are they flying? Well, this is understood, but they are in classified projects. So that was another objective, was to get the technologies out to the public so we could have a civilization that would get free from the use of oil and the destruction of the environment.
There were probably 1,500 reported cases at that time.
I have over 3,000 cases now.
They estimated 100 yards from the left wing was this 100-foot disc.
And the strength of the signal was as strong as the surface contact on the water of an aircraft carrier.
this contact was huge.
The size of these objects around 100 meters or greater.
So it would go from 1 o'clock, 7 or 8 miles to 6, 7 o'clock, 7 or 8 miles inside of 4 or 5 seconds. You have to be moving pretty quickly.
They could rise, just go straight up. They could do that, just seemed like instantaneous.
Once they started moving, they went straight up, for a while, and then they went zap.
Then it just sort of disappeared. It dematerialized
and left the atmosphere, just was gone. It just took off into space.
He said, "You are never to speak of this again. As far as you're concerned, this never happened."
And you never saw this, and I don't exist, and this situation never happened.
I didn't want to look at it any longer than that because I felt that my life was in jeopardy.
I am prepared to state that I have been at locations where craft of unknown origin that did not originate on the face of this planet was there. I am prepared to state that while I was there, we saw living, dead bodies of entities that were not born on this planet. I am prepared to state that we had what they referred to as interfacing with those entities. We have contact with aliens not originating from some foreign country, but from some other solar system. And I have been a party to that.
What some of these witnesses also revealed were observations of UFOs hovering over storage sites of nuclear weapons and nuclear rocket launch sites.
The big increase in all the sightings around the world happened at the time when we began to detonate nuclear weapons. This is not an accident. And I've been told by senior intelligence officials that essentially a big red flag went up over our planet saying we were in trouble. But not only are we in trouble, but we could be a threat to others, because you combine going into space, the early stages of space travel, and the use of hydrogen bombs and nuclear weapons, and a civilization on Earth that was still very violent as you look around the Earth even today, of course. So this is something that any enlightened or even self-interested civilization observing the Earth, which I think we've been under observation for thousands of years, would be greatly concerned.
Over the last 35 years, I have talked to now over 100 people, about 115 nuclear missile launch officers, targeting officers, missile maintenance personnel, and missile guards. And these individuals, for the most part, do not know each other. Some were in the Air Force in the 1960s, some were in the Air Force in the 1990s. And they were at different bases, but they all have very, very similar stories. And what they describe is UFOs coming in very quickly at high rates of speed and instantly stopping and hovering either over the underground nuclear missile launchers or what are called launch control facilities that launch the missiles. So after the missiles malfunction, the UFO leaves. Now, this has occurred at least 3 Air Force bases that I'm aware of in the United States.
The event, the incident, I guess I call it, is happened on the morning of March 16th, 1967. As I recall, it was early in the morning, and I received a call from my topside security guard, and he said that he and some of the guards had been observing some strange lights flying around the site. It wasn't more than, within a few minutes, I'd say, maybe a half hour later. He calls back, and this time he's very frightened. I can tell by the tone of his voice, he's very shook up, and said, "Sir, there's a glowing red object hovering right outside the front gate." He said, "I'm looking at it right now. It's a glowing red object. I've got all the men out here with their weapons drawn." And of course, he was all shook up while he was telling me this. He was very excited. I immediately went over to my commander, who was taking a nap,
We have a little cot down there in a rest period. And I was telling him about the telephone call we just received, and as I was relating this to him, our missiles started shutting down one by one. There were approximately anywhere from 6 to 8 that went down, but they went down in rapid succession, which again is extremely rare. And in the meantime, I called upstairs to find out what the status was of this object. And the guard said, well, the object has left. It just left at high speed.
Numerous well-documented UFO sightings by numerous credible people. Flying saucers tracked on radar, chased by fighter pilots. Nuclear missile sites malfunctioning after UFO visitations. And even alien beings witnessed by police officers and high-ranked military personnel. Where does all this leave us?
4 major conclusions after now 51 years of study and investigation. First, the evidence is overwhelming that planet Earth is being visited by intelligently controlled extraterrestrial spacecraft. In other words, some UFOs, some, underline it 20 times, some UFOs are alien spacecraft. Most are not. I don't care about the ones that aren't. I'm a nuclear physicist. I don't care about the isotopes that aren't fissionable. You want to build a reactor, use the one that is. Who cares about the rest? That's the first conclusion. Second, the subject of flying saucers represents a kind of cosmic Watergate. That is to say, some few people within major governments have known since at least 1947, when at least 2 crashed flying saucers were recovered with alien bodies in New Mexico, that indeed some UFOs are alien spacecraft. Notice I'm not saying everybody in government knows. That's not how you keep secrets. I worked under security for 14 years. Need to know is the important factor. The third conclusion is that none of the arguments made against the first 2 by a small group of noisy negativists, when I'm being polite, stand up under careful scrutiny. They sound great until you look at the data, and then all those anti-arguments collapse. And the fourth conclusion, because I'm such a shy, retiring kind of guy, is that this is the biggest story of the millennium. Visits to planet Earth by alien spacecraft. Successful cover-up of the best data, bodies and wreckage, for 62 years.
In the 90s, people started recording their observations with the new handy camcorders. Today, thousands of UFO clips are posted on YouTube. But unfortunately, with the sophisticated animation tools now available on home PCs, it's almost impossible to tell the real from the fake. So this has made both video and digital stills documentation less reliable as evidence or proof of sightings. But in spite of this growing interest in the subject, the main news media have left the UFO phenomenon almost untouched.